viewers, welcome to another series of Love for No Reason. Today we'll be considering the first doorway, which is the doorway of safety. But before that, we have to note that the heart is the master command of love. To experience and live in love for no reason, our heart center has to be open and balanced. It's true that the heart is the main portal where the energy of love is given and received. It needs the support of other energy centers for it to remain open. And that's why the Bible advises us in Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23 that you should keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Anything that happens must take place from the heart. In addition to that, the heart is both the spiritual and physical. It's the bridge that connects the spiritual with the physical. It transmits the combined energies of the earth and the divine into our human experiences. So the doorway of safety, being in the here and now. Strengthening the safety center is about lessening our fears and feeling safe no matter where we are. To give and receive love, we must first trust that we are safe in our surroundings. When this doorway is open, we feel calm and present in the moment. We don't rush, we don't panic, and we are at ease even when we are busy. You have this assurance that all is well with you no matter what is happening. To grow and flourish in love, we need a strong root. And for you to feel this calmness all over is when you have a strong root, a strong supporting system. This may sound simple enough, but how many people do you know, including yourself, who feel absolutely rooted and secure in their lives, irrespective of their income, their job, or their relationship status? How many people do you think, they never lost to worry about what if this, what if that? Modern life has brought us many gifts, but also some serious challenges. It's giving us fragmented families and competitive workplaces and taking away the safety nets we relied upon for hundreds of years, leaving us with little or no stability. But the good news is that we can create that unshakable safety inside, that strong root and support system, which will be so strong like redwood trees, difficult to knock over and soothing to be around. Most people have that strong mindset and that strong supporting system, and they didn't get to that level overnight. They developed inner security with practice by grounding themselves firmly in the present moment and finding a way, a deep bedrock of trust in their lives. And that takes us to unlocking the doorway of safety. For us to have this doorway of safety, being in the here and now, there is two love keys to that. The first is to get grounded, and then sense your support. Now, to get grounded, it involves slowing down and connecting to the earth and the present moment. The practice of mindfulness, which is bringing your full attention to what you're experiencing in the very moment or at every moment, will ground you and counter that agitated or fearful state. Some people, their mind is not always in what they are doing at the moment. They are doing one thing, but their mind is in 3 or 4 or 5 places. There is no how you feel safety about that. But being in the here and now, concentrating fully in what you are doing at the moment, will help you to be grounded, calm, and be safe wherever you are at the moment. Now, the sense of support unlocks your inner trust that there is plenty in life to lean on. It involves recognizing, appreciating, and making use of the support that already exists within and around you. You can disarm anxieties and you can lean into the larger truth of the things around you. You speak to yourself that I'm supported, I trust I'll be taken care of, even if I don't always know how or by whom. That's why the Bible says that the just shall live by faith. That means you have full assurance in the Lord. He's your support system. You feel him around you no matter the circumstances or whatever may present itself. Now, to live with a wide open heart ourselves, we need to sense the 3 distinct circles of support in our lives. We have the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. The first circle, which is physical, relates to the physical aspect of support, the feeling that you can sustain your basic needs and that you are safe no matter what's going on outside. The second circle involves the emotional aspect of support, the people around you, sometimes the pets, whose presence helps you to feel safe and comforted. It includes your immediate family and friends with whom you share your daily lives, plus your extended tribe like neighbors, colleagues, and members of your community. Being aware that there are people you can count on for help and encouragement makes it easier to live with an open heart. Now, the third circle of support is the spiritual one. People living in higher love have a deeply felt sense that they are part of something bigger and there's some benevolent order to events. The spiritual one means your connection with God, with all in all, because being spiritual means that you're connected to a higher being, which is God, which is of a purer love, and with whom there is no fear in love. So this circle of support is what ultimately brings us that redwood stability, that strong support. When we feel the universe is friendly, we develop the most profound and reassuring kind of support there is, which is unconditional trust. Now we are going to listen to Mary's story as she moves from feeling the state of being afraid to the state of freedom, the state of being when there was no safety because of situation and circumstances around her, to how she was able to overcome that fearful state.
Mary's story.
In
In 1975, I was 25 years old and had been married for 4 years. It was a happy, exciting time for me. My husband, Paul, was a lawyer with his eyes on a future in politics, and I was the host and producer of a daily talk show called Mary's Guestbook on a regional television station in Virginia. My audience was primarily female, so I often dealt with subjects that were relevant to women's lives. 2 weeks before Christmas that year, I aired a show on sexual assault, an issue that wasn't usually discussed on television in those days. Afterwards, the station was flooded with phone calls and letters as hundreds of women shared their painful experiences and the fear they had been hiding. I wept hearing their stories and reading their letters. So many victims, so much pain. A week later, I decided to tape a few programs in one day so I could be free the week of Christmas. Rather than make the hour-long commute home, I opted to check into the hotel across the street from the studio and spend the evening preparing for the morning's tapings. By 11 o'clock I was having trouble staying alert, so I went downstairs to the hotel restaurant and got a cup of coffee. I got back to the room and was sitting down at the desk when I heard the window curtains rustle in back of me. Suddenly a man grabbed my neck from behind. Pressing the cold steel muzzle of a gun to my temple, he hissed in my ear, "Okay, Miss Cute talk show host. What do you do with a gun to your head?" I was terrified. Struggling to free myself as much as I dared, I pleaded for him to let me go, but he held me in a stranglehold. Then he threw me down on the bed and began to rape me brutally. A ski mask covered his face. All I knew was that he was very strong. The pain was excruciating, but the terror was worse. Trying to keep from going into shock, I repeated the Lord's Prayer over and over to myself. I had always been a person of strong faith, but now, as I struggled to feel God's presence, my heart cried out, "How can I live through this?" Finally, still holding the gun to my head, he whispered in my ear, "I will kill you if you tell." And then the terrifying words, "I know where you live." Then he backed away, climbed out the window onto the roof of the parking garage, and slipped away into the night. I shut the window and, despite his threat, immediately called the front desk and reported what had happened. Then, shaking from head to toe, I called Paul. "I've been raped," I sobbed on the phone. "I need you. Please come and hold me." Then I huddled in a chair, weeping, my arms wrapped around my knees. I felt filthy, alone, and overwhelmed by fear. Hotel security responded at once, as did the police, but there was no trace of the rapist, nor any useful evidence. When Paul arrived, he cradled me like a child, repeating over and over, "I love you, sweetheart. It's going to be all right." Finally, exhausted, I fell asleep in his arms. Though I managed to go on air the next morning, I was afraid my attacker would know I hadn't kept the rape a secret. If I didn't, I did the show like a robot. Afterwards, the station manager told me he would host the rest of the Christmas week shows to give me some time to heal. When I got home, I went straight to bed but slept fitfully. My body was bruised and my heart felt completely broken. Christmas came and went, but nothing was the same. The rape itself had been horrible beyond imagining, but even more devastating was the dagger of fear that had struck deep in my heart. My safe, happy world, and the trusting person I had been, were shattered. I was afraid of being touched and got nervous when a stranger even looked at me. After the holidays, I continued the daily show on autopilot. Thankfully, after 2 months my period came. I was not pregnant. It was a great relief, yet fear still consumed me. Every day as I commuted to work or ate a meal, I could hear my attacker's chilling words, "I know where you live." I knew I needed help but couldn't seem to find it. I tried counseling but worried I'd never truly feel like myself again. I kept telling myself, "Mary, why can't you just get over this?" Though I tried to hide my emotions and push down the pain, a storm still raged inside me. After 3 months of constant distress, I resigned from the television show I loved. What could I do to return to the Mary I'd been before the rape? This was the question that commanded all my attention. I knew I couldn't heal this wound alone, so I called my best friend, who was living in Texas at the time. In college, Renee and I been closer than sisters and our theme song had always been James Taylor's, "You've Got a Friend." Now I called out her name and asked her to come to Virginia to help me heal. Like the true friend she is, she came. I'd once heard that if an elephant in Africa is injured and falls down, he will likely die because of the weight of his heavy body on the wound. In this situation, 2 elephants will often come alongside the wounded one and literally hold him up, for days if necessary, until the elephant is strong enough to stand alone. Renee and Paul became my supporting elephants. They pressed in close and I leaned on their courage. Whenever I felt fearful, they reminded me that I was a woman loved by her husband, adored by friends, with a life worth living, worth fighting for. If I gave in to the fear, it would rob me of all the good that was right there in front of me. They held me up with their love until I was able to stand alone. I also did a lot of praying during this time. My trust in God had always been a source of comfort for me, but since the rape, I had felt confused. Despite that trust, I hadn't been protected. Now my faith was shaken. I asked God to help me understand and to heal. Gradually I began to feel better, though I did still experience moments of heart-pounding panic. Then in May, 7 months after the rape, I found out that Paul and I were going to have a baby. Oh, joy. I thought, I can finally put this all behind me. Meanwhile, Paul had decided to run for Congress. He was elected in November 1976, and we moved to Washington, D.C., where our daughter Mary Catherine was born. Those were happy, healing days, taking care of Mary Catherine. One day, however, after a stroll around the neighborhood with my now 3-month-old baby, I walked up our front walk and was suddenly stopped cold by the sight of our front door. It had been smashed in. Someone had broken into our home. In a flash, all the old fear came flooding back, heightened tenfold because of the baby in my arms. It was clear that the intruder was gone, so after calling Paul to notify the police, I put Mary Catherine in her bed. I was shaking with fear and didn't want it to affect her. I went to my own bedroom and fell on my knees. I cried out to God, "I can't go back to being a victim every moment of my life. You have got to be with me and save me from being destroyed by this fear again." As soon as I said those words, I felt the presence of a beautiful spirit envelop me. It was like being wrapped in a soft, warm blanket. My fear left me and I was filled with peace. In that moment of clarity, I thought of all I'd gone through since the rape. I saw that although it had broken my heart, it had also given me much deeper compassion for others. I wondered, what if I stopped thinking of myself as a victim and instead saw that I was a survivor who had maybe even gained something from my ordeal? This revolutionary thought gave me a strength I had never felt before. As I waited for Paul to come home, I felt a thrill of hope. What would life be like, knowing that I was truly safe because even bad things that happened to me could be used for good in my life? From that day forward, my feelings of well-being and security grew steadily. I understood that trusting in God didn't mean that scary things wouldn't happen in my life. It meant that anything, however scary, could be okay if I trusted that it had a purpose in my life and could serve me and others in some way. 35 years later, I continue to see how much I learned from that terrible night. I have a kind of love I don't think I would have gained without that trauma. I was always a caring and compassionate woman, but I wouldn't have had the same sensitivity and depth of love that I do now. It's as if I'm a clay pot that's been cracked and God's light shines out most brightly through my broken places. That light is a kind of love that allows me to enter into the suffering of others. For a lot of people, that's very uncomfortable. For me, it is a great joy. If I can hold the container of someone else's pain, I can help them see their own light coming through the cracks, heralding a new beginning and new freedom. Today I spend a lot of time working with women who've been raped or sexually abused. It's gotten to the point that I can sense if a woman has been through that kind of trauma just by looking at her. And at my best, I can become like a candle, able to lean toward another and light her wick from my flame. I would never have chosen to be raped, of course. And yet I am deeply grateful for my healing journey from fear to freedom. My heart is more full of love than it ever was before, and I have a more mature relationship with God. I look to Him, not for safety and protection, but for support in opening my heart and becoming of greater service to others. I pray that God continues to use me as the elephants use each other in times of distress. Let me be one whom others can lean on until their hearts are healed and they can love again.
So I believe you learned something from Mary's story. It was such an emotional story that I wanted you to pick the circles there. She had the physical and the emotional and the spiritual support. She had Rainy and Paul. Rainy, her best friend, and Paul, her husband, were there to support her during those trying times. And when it seems as if she has healed and such issue or such experiences try to recall again, she was able to go down on her knees and cried out to God to help her overcome her fears. And that's where the spiritual power, the spiritual support came. And with it came a vision to help other people that have passed through that. And without that kind of brokenness, she wouldn't have received this higher love for herself and for her others. So when we pass through some situation in our hearts, in our lives, God wants us to be broken enough to feel what He felt on the cross of Calvary as He was dying for you and I. That kind of compassion that will draw souls to Him and make you feel the emotional pain your neighbor or someone around you might be going through. If your love has not gotten to that extent, then you really need God to help you, because that is the essence of love for no reason. You must not really pass through what Mary passed through before you are broken. But there are some situations, even greater than hers or less than hers, that can cause one to broken. The main thing is that you is from a state of heart. What's your state of heart? For her, going through that experience, God opened her eyes and gave her new vision. So whatever situation you are passing through, see the positive aspect of it. Use the positive aspects of it and draw close to God and get souls closer to Him than dwelling in fear, or safety, or killing yourself. So I hope you've been blessed with that story. So in summary, getting grounded and sensing your support are the keys that open the doorway of safety. You support the opening of your heart by slowing down and connecting to the calm core of security within you. And that calm core of security within you is when you have the Spirit of God in you, whom you listen to, whom you always go to in times of trouble. He will give you the peace, the calm, the support to withstand every storm. So we are going to send some steps to follow so that this love will flow through you. This love energy or this center of safety will flow through you. Try to practice them, and then we'll see next time. By this time next week, as we look at the second doorway, the doorway of vitality, turning up the juice. Remain blessed. Do like, share, subscribe, and we'd like to hear your comments about this series we are going through, Love for No Reason, and to know if really it has been opening your heart to reasons why you have to love without no reason. Remain blessed. See you same time next week.